For all of the analysis done on Metal Gear Solid's narrative and characters, the themes and metaphysical commentary surrounding it, there are some pretty darn good boss fights. Of course, the final bosses always turn out to be the most memorable, so we decided to go through and rank all of the final bosses in the series. So, let's start with number 10. Big Boss, Metal Gear. This was it, the first major betrayal that Metal Gear players would face. Apparently guiding Solid Snake through his mission to destroy Metal Gear, Big Boss would be revealed as the leader of Outer Heaven. After starting the self-destruct sequence, Big Boss and Solid Snake fight to the death, which is a nice way of saying that the player pelted him to death with rockets. By today's standards, it's kind of an underwhelming fight, but its real weight is in the revelation of Big Boss's betrayal. Gene, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. The concept of Gene, a product of the successor project with superhuman abilities, is intriguing enough. His boss fight, well, somewhat less so. Gene is capable of dashing across the room with zero shift, but this move is fairly easy to sidestep, on top of leaving him exhausted. He can also throw a multitude of knives, one by one, or a swath of them simultaneously, which are also easy to sidestep or avoid by standing behind certain objects. You're probably noticing a pattern here. Nevertheless, Gene is fairly charismatic and a decent contrast to Big Boss's ambitions. Big Boss, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Big Boss, the real one this time, returns for another fight, and this one is a bit better with the larger arena. He still mostly runs around and shoots at Snake, but it works given, once again, the excellent dramatic tension that's been built up. Hearing the legend talk about awakening the warrior within and seeking the satisfaction that only war can bring is pretty mesmerizing. It's almost enough to make you forget that you defeated him with hairspray and a lighter. Liquid Snake, Metal Gear Solid. With the Metal Gear Solid era came a fundamental step up in how boss fights were handled, and it certainly shows here. After disabling Metal Gear Rex, the player must battle Liquid Snake in hand-to-hand combat on top of it. One wrong move means falling off, with the self-destruct timer ticking down and Meryl incapacitated. The mechanics and presentation may be fairly simple, but fighting Liquid head-on proved to be an interesting challenge, and that's before the escape sequence on Jeeps. Metal Gear Zeke, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Who would win, a turncoat girl in a giant Metal Gear or one snaky boy? The answer is fairly obvious at this point. The fight is very cool, with Snake using the hatches on the Mother Base's deck for cover. From there, it evolved into using gun platforms to launch strikes on Zeke, distracting it long enough to get some shots in while avoiding its bullets and missiles. There was just enough skill needed to hit Zeke's AI pod, balanced with the right amount of action and hype, which was helped by Koi no Yoku Shiryoku playing in the background to signify Paz's emotions. Solidus Snake, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. Solidus Snake has always had a tenuous legacy, being the third son of Big Boss and embroiled with the Patriots. His relationship with Raiden is all the more complex, having essentially killed young Jack's parents and raising him to be a killer. After becoming the President of the United States thanks to the Patriots, Solidus would rebel against the organization and eventually face off against Raiden for the key to their identities. It's a truly fated encounter between teacher and student, murderer and victim, each a patriot in their own right. Mechanically, this fight is unlike anything else in the series. Both fighters rely on swords in keeping with Solidus's beliefs, but the latter possesses insane agility and speed. Eventually, Raiden overcomes him and Solidus falls, spine severed but not quite dead. This wouldn't be the last we would see Jack the Ripper either. Metal Gear Sahelanthropus, Second Encounter, Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. When a Metal Gear begins a battle by whipping out a giant sword and demolishing several tanks and attack choppers, you know it means business. Metal Gear Sahelanthropus establishes itself as an overwhelming threat immediately, its recklessness signifying the rage that Eli feels. So what does Venom Snake do? Well, hop on horseback and commandeer missile launchers and tanks, anything to bring it down. The fight has a more chaotic feel than other final bosses as one darts around on horseback, firing at Sahelanthropus with everything and avoiding its sword slices and firepower to succeed. Eventually it goes down, and you feel like a titan has been felled, though it's not the end by any means. Sen Armstrong, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. If you want to talk about hype with a capital H, then the final battle against Senator Armstrong and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance more than qualifies. From dodging the erupting flames and heavy blows that Armstrong dishes out to slicing up rubble with Zendatsu, this fight has it all. Even these cinematic moments are awesome without going too over the top, like slicing up Armstrong's arms and then targeting his heart. If nothing else, even if he was ultimately felled in the end, Armstrong was portrayed as a reasonable threat both physically and ideologically in the limited time that he had. The boss, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. There have been emotional CQC boss battles in the Metal Gear Solid series, but in terms of drama and weight, the battle with the boss is almost on top. This is Naked Snake before he became Big Boss, going up against his mentor, his entire reason for being. Not only is this a fight to the death, but in true Metal Gear fashion, there's a timer ticking down to destruction. And instead of just being a close quarters battle, there is the added layer of stealth, especially given the environment and gunplay. Perhaps one of the cooler moments is seeing the boss just manhandle Snake in close quarters, which makes sense and gives further context to Snake using his stealth and guerrilla tactics to get the drop on her. In the end, Snake is forced to kill his mentor, as she proclaims there's only room for one boss. Later on, we learn that everything she has done was in service to her country, even if that meant being labeled as a traitor forever. Suffice it to say, the impact this had on Big Boss and his character throughout the years is significant. Liquid Ocelot, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. It had to end like this. Solid Snake, a self-proclaimed relic of the past, finishing one last mission. Liquid Ocelot, a PMC heavyweight intent on defeating the Patriots. It's fitting that Solid Snake's story would begin and end in a final battle with his brother. In many ways, the setup for this fight echoes Metal Gear Solid 1, with Snake unwittingly playing a part in Liquid's plan to create Outer Heaven. It's everything a fan of the series could want, and there's more. The close quarters fight itself was pretty good, feeling much more fluid and responsive than their first encounter. Plus, it had several callbacks to Liquid's old moves, like the Rising Charge. Eventually, the two just wail on each other, exchanging back and forth knockdown blows without relenting. If all of that wasn't enough, the Snake Eater theme starts playing near the end as well, because why not? Snake wins out, of course. Ocelot acknowledges that he is the doppelganger, aka successor to Big Boss, uttering one last "you're pretty good" before passing on. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.